They told the world he was sick, that Parkinson's just happened. But what they didn't tell you is that Muhammad Ali knew something. Something so dangerous it destroyed him from the inside out. And the people closest to him, they made sure he'd never speak again. This is the story they don't want you to know. Muhammad Ali is 22 years old. He just shocked the world, defeating Sonny Liston. But behind closed doors, something else is happening. Something that will haunt him for the rest of his life. See, Ali didn't just win that night. He discovered something about the fight game that nobody was supposed to see. The contracts, the money trails, the offshore accounts. Boxing wasn't a sport. It was a machine. And Ali? He just became the most valuable part of it. But here's where it gets dark. The men who controlled that machine, they were watching, and they didn't like questions. Herbert Muhammad, Ali's manager, his spiritual advisor, the man Ali trusted with everything. But trust can be the deadliest weapon. While Ali was making millions in the ring, Herbert was making deals outside of it. Deals Ali knew nothing about. Deals that would drain nearly $50 million from Ali's empire. Licensing agreements, merchandising rights, endorsement contracts, all signed away, all without Ali's knowledge. But that's not even the worst part. The worst part, Ali's own wife was in on it. Veronica Porche Ali, the woman he left everything for. She wasn't just spending his money, she was redirecting it. Offshore accounts in the Cayman Islands, real estate deals in California under fake names. By 1978, Ali had fought 15 times in 3 years. His brain was deteriorating. His speech was slowing. And the people he loved most? They were cashing in on his decline. But Ali was starting to notice. And that's when they got desperate. Larry Holmes' fight. Ali looks wrong. His movements are slow. His eyes are glazed. This isn't just age. His longtime cornerman, Drew Bundini Brown, would later confess something to a reporter. Something that never made it to print. Ali's water bottles during training camps weren't just water, performance enhancers, painkillers, and something else. Something Bundini wouldn't name. But he said this: they needed him to keep fighting, even when his body was screaming to stop. So they gave him help. The kind of help that makes you forget the pain. The kind that destroys you slowly. Medical records from 1981 show something terrifying. Ali's blood tests revealed traces of compounds that shouldn't be there. Compounds consistent with heavy metal poisoning, lead, mercury, substances that attack the nervous system. And here's what they don't want you to know. 3 members of Ali's training team died within 5 years of his retirement, all of them under mysterious circumstances. Bundini Brown, heart attack at 57. Luis Saria, his massage therapist, died in his sleep, cause unknown. Angelo Dundee's assistant, Jimmy, disappeared in 1986. Never found. The only thing they had in common? They all knew what was in those bottles, but it wasn't just his team betraying him. The United States government had Ali in their crosshairs for years. Ali refuses the Vietnam draft, calls it unjust, gets stripped of his titles, banned from boxing for 3 years. But that's the story you know. Here's what you don't. Declassified FBI files from 2012 reveal something chilling. The government didn't just want to silence Ali, they wanted to destroy him financially, mentally, and physically. Operation Neutralize the Mouth, wiretaps on his phones, informants in his camp, IRS audits every single year. They froze his assets, blacklisted him from endorsements, made sure every door was closed. But here's where it gets sinister. One document, still partially redacted, mentions medical intervention protocols. Protocols designed to accelerate natural decline. What does that mean? Some researchers believe Ali's Parkinson's wasn't just from boxing. It was accelerated, triggered, by substances introduced during his government surveillance period. They wanted to make an example out of him. And they did. By the time Ali was allowed back in the ring, he was already damaged, and they knew it. Ali is diagnosed with Parkinson's syndrome. He can barely speak. His hands shake constantly. But he's still making appearances, still signing autographs, still being paraded around by his handlers. Why? Because even in his decline, he was worth millions. His 4th wife, Lonnie Ali, takes control of his estate in 1986. She becomes his legal guardian, his spokesperson, his keeper. And here's what nobody talks about. Between 1990 and 2010, Ali made over $80 million in appearance fees and licensing deals. How much did Ali see? Nobody knows, because he couldn't ask. Former friends tried to visit. tried to see him. They were turned away. Even his own children from previous marriages struggled to get access. Joe Frazier, his greatest rival, tried to reconcile before he died. He called the house 14 times, never got through. George Foreman sent letters, ignored. It was like Ali was being held prisoner. And the man who once spoke for millions couldn't speak for himself. But here's what will really disturb you. At least 11 people close to Muhammad Ali died under suspicious circumstances between 1975 and 2005. Bundini Brown, heart attack. Harold Conrad, his publicist, sudden stroke. Louis Saria, unknown causes. Jimmy Ellis, sparring partner, dementia at 62. Ernie Terrell, dementia at 75. Ken Norton, never fully recovered from a car accident some say was staged. And then there's Malcolm X Ali's mentor, his brother. Assassinated in 1965. The official story? Nation of Islam hit, but FBI files show something else. They show that the government knew about the assassination plot weeks in advance, and they let it happen. Why? Because Malcolm was teaching Ali to think, to question, to see the machine for what it was. And they couldn't have that. Ali knew this. He knew Malcolm's death wasn't random, and it broke him. He spent the rest of his life afraid. Afraid to speak too loud, afraid to question too much, because he knew if they could take Malcolm, they could take anyone. So what did Muhammad Ali actually know? He knew boxing was rigged, not every fight, but enough. He knew his managers were stealing from him. He knew the government wanted him silent. He knew the substances they were giving him were destroying his brain. And most importantly, he knew that speaking out would mean death. Not just his death, but the people he loved. There's an interview from 1996. Ali is barely able to speak, but a reporter asks him, "Do you regret anything?" Ali looks directly at the camera, his hands trembling, and he whispers, "I should have stayed quiet." That interview was pulled from broadcast, never aired. The reporter? Fired 2 weeks later, June 10th, 2016. Muhammad Ali dies at 74. The world mourns. Presidents give speeches. Celebrities cry on camera. But nobody talks about how he really died. Not from Parkinson's, not from old age. He died from betrayal, from greed, from a system that chewed him up and spit him out. Muhammad Ali was the greatest boxer who ever lived. But outside the ring, he was just another man. A man who trusted the wrong people. A man who knew too much. And they made sure he'd never tell. So here's the lesson. In this world, being great isn't enough. Being right isn't enough. The moment you become valuable, you become a target. And the people closest to you? They're usually the ones pulling the trigger. Rest in peace, champ. The truth is finally coming out.